Training camp is right around the corner. Teams need identities and facelifts, and we're going to tell you who those teams are on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
There's a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the barbershop edition of Locked On NFL that comes on every single afternoon right here and hits you upside your head with some of the biggest topics that you can find in the National Football League. And I'm joined today by Ross Jackson of Locked On NFL, Locked On Saints. He's here to give a proverbial haircut with me to 6 people and try to change their life, man. I know I did that for 30 years. You come in, I give you a haircut, and your wife calls me on the phone and says, "Thank you, Jesus, you gave me a haircut." And that's what we're doing today, right here on the barbershop. But first, I got to let you know that wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap into that location each and every day, whether you watch or listen, and we will be there giving you shows like this one that is brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out and thank you to the everydayers. And if you're new here, we'll try to give you a reason to come back. Here are the teams that we're going to talk about. We're going to close the show, of course, with the Dallas Cowboys because they're box office, right? And we got to finish with the Giants too because, well, that's the media capital of the world. But right in the middle, we're going to talk about the Bears in the heartland of the United States and then tap down to the ATL and check out what the Falcons have going on. But we're going to start the show first with the Colts, and then we'll get to the Browns. But the Colts first. Ross, is there a team in the league, when you think of who are they, that makes you scratch your head harder than Indianapolis?
Nope, that's the one, man. That's the one. They don't have the quarterback. They don't have the big personality at head coach. They don't have the big stars. They lack a lot of what it is that you typically build an identity around, and they're not necessarily strong on one side of the ball over the other either. And this is a historied franchise, Tony. Like this is a team you want to see have an identity, but right now they're certainly struggling to find it.
They are struggling to find it. We would be remiss if we did not mention again, especially before the season, that the Colts will be under new leadership this year because of the death of longtime owner Jim Irsay. We still think about the Irsay family and all of those people up there. So we're not making fun of them. But the one thing that they can do is go to the barbershop and get a haircut. One thing you do when you get a haircut, though, you don't want to mess with the good parts. And there are some things that the Colts do well, and maybe they need to double down on it. Check out Locked On Colts for this.
Well, but the Colts have upgraded the backfield with Khalil Herbert and DJ Giddens. So the good news for Taylor is he's dealt with some injuries over the last few years, but the last we saw him, he had like 180 yards from scrimmage in week 18. Yep. So our lasting memory of him so far is a really good Jonathan Taylor performance. So he's obviously got, a lot of wear and tear. He's, I think, 26 now. So what's your overall vibe with him? Like, what's your outlook for Taylor on the season?
Yeah, I'm expecting top 10 numbers. Is there risk there in terms of the durability? I mean, certainly. But I still think he's the centerpiece of the offense. Now, in fantasy, in a situation where, it's like a Jonathan Taylor, who tends to get dinged up, Christian McCaffrey type, although Taylor's more durable than McCaffrey over the last, 5 years, you want to know who the backup's going to be.
Jonathan Taylor is the perfect example for this entire show. Very, very good player in everyone's eyes, but really, really nondescript. If you just walk down the street in Dallas, Texas and say, "Give me the top 5 running backs," he would be the dude people go, "I forgot about him." He describes the coach to a T. I think they're on to something, though. If that's the best part of your team, build on it and don't wear him out and don't get him banged up. Make sure you can start getting things around him better so his numbers, sort of like Saquon, can actually mean something to a football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think the addition of DJ Giddens, who was one of my favorite running backs in this draft coming out of Kansas State, was a huge move by Indianapolis. I think that's the upgrade to their backfield in complement to Jonathan Taylor. Khalil Herbert, I can kind of come or go for it, you know what I mean, a little bit. He hasn't carried the ball more than 40 times in any of the last 3 seasons and never really took off since that 700-plus yard season back in, I think it was 2022, 2021. But I don't know what he really gives you unless he's going to be a receiving option out of the backfield. But DJ Giddens is the guy that I look at and I go, okay, now there's not only a compliment to Jonathan Taylor, but somebody you can go to in place of Jonathan Taylor, who has dealt with injury a little bit over the course of the past couple of years. And I think that's the other place that you have to, you got to get stronger. You got to make sure you have that depth. And you want that when you don't have an answer at quarterback right now, because I don't feel like Indianapolis has that. So yeah, lean in on that run game as much as you can and hope that the defense can get the ball back to that run game, play some clock control, all that. Like, that's the way that Indianapolis is going to have to win games this year.
And use your big rookie tight end too in the red zone, and also some play action and get him out in the flat. And he's a pretty good blocker. So what that can do is you got to take it one thing at a time and just get an identity. And the coach need to just lean in on being that running team. Now we get
put him at quarterback too, by the way, Tyler Warren. Like let him take the wildcat snaps.
Do what you got to do
every now and then. You know what I mean?
Yep. Got to do what you got to do. Now we get to the malcontent part of the show. I was just telling Ross before we started, when I worked in the barbershop, we had this one client whose kid always got in trouble in school. And we would see Duval County School and we would like telephone. And when he came back to the shop to tell us what was happening, he sounded a lot like Spencer German. So that bad kid is the Browns and Spencer German is his daddy. Listen to this.
Well, per usual, never a dull moment when it comes to Cleveland Browns. Even during the summer when I was thinking, hey, it's going to be smooth sailing to training camp. We're nearly there. The biggest scandal we had to talk about was a couple Shedeur Sanders speeding tickets. Ooh. And instead, we get Quinshon Judkins arrested in Florida on a strike, battery, and domestic violence charge. We know how the Browns generally handle these things through a spokesperson with the team. They've said they're gathering information. That's generally what their blanket statement they give. They let the legal process play out. They never jump the gun on this stuff. What's interesting is Quinshon is the only rookie unsigned at this point. So I don't know how that factors into any of this. But it's just another offseason where the Browns can't stay out of the negative headlines when it comes to players getting in trouble this time of year. And for a guy who's supposed to be a feature back for you, a key contributor for you, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out leading up to training camp, leading up to the season, and so on and so forth.
All right. So first and foremost, we're going to let you know right now, we don't play about domestic violence. I think men that hit women need to be locked in a room with another bigger man so that they can figure that out. But we also don't know what this investigation is going to be. So we ain't going to turn into sleuths here and investigators. So I wish all for the best for everybody. But Cleveland does find themselves in a situation, the wrong side of these situations a lot. A lot of this, too, we'll get to Judkins. A lot of this is going to be, Spencer just mentioned he's not under contract. How dare you go in there if you're the Browns and say, well, we can't give you everything and we have to put these clauses in because of these allegations when you knew what Deshaun Watson was and gave him a fully guaranteed contract.
I'm saying the big story here is not Quinshon Judkins' value to the Cleveland Browns. The big story here is Quinshon Judkins and his legal matter and what that means for and what the Cleveland Browns have already set as a precedent of being a team that has kind of bent the knee when they shouldn't in these types of situations.
Didn't even have to.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns are the last team that I think of when it comes to which one of them has a constant, visible moral compass. You know what I mean? And so it's going to be interesting. And by the way, the only reason why Quinshon Judkins isn't signed is because of the NFL's ongoing second-round pick conundrum, because there's a new precedent with the first ever fully guaranteed second-round picks. It has nothing to do with this situation. This situation exists in and of itself and needs its own attention, not that other stuff, right? His contract holdup is not because of this. It could be, it should be to an extent, right? But like really what the issue here is that he is, set up on this situation with domestic violence. And that is the lead story when it comes to this whole situation. And so how this all pans out, I can't imagine the Cleveland Browns standing on a alleged virtue signaling here, considering all the things that they've done in their past.
Yep, and this is why you never shovel crap on yourself, because enough of it's gonna fall on you. You don't need to add to it. And the Cleveland Browns, and by the way, they do have brown in their uniform. They always shoveling crap and manure all over themselves. All right, we're gonna talk about a team called the Monsters of the Midway by a lot of people, but it doesn't sound like the fans understand that. I think Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears does, but we'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with stress or ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with the killer last-minute deals. Man, I know I'm just tired of scrolling all the time. I just want to see how much the ticket costs and where my seat's going to be, and Game Time can always give me that information. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Talking about facelifts and identity. Not the ones that you go to the doctor to get, but the ones you go to the gym to get, the ones you do yourself, and you got to do the hard work. And Ross Jackson is here with me, Tony Wiggins. And now we're going to get to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have been searching for a quarterback to finally throw for 4,000 yards and make themselves modernized forever. They drafted Caleb Williams. He played pretty well. He still didn't hit that number, so they've gone out and gotten Ben Johnson. And what does Ben Johnson do? He invests money in the trenches on both sides of the ball because they are the monsters of the midway, not monsters of the airway. Listen to Ross. I say Ross. Ross is laughing, but listen to Lauren Cox talk about this transformation and facelift that might help the Bears.
Yeah, that was a big part of the impetus to upgrade the offensive line, was to not only get better players, but get more consistent, more available players. And they certainly got that in Joe Thuney, who has been one of these pretty rare NFL offensive line Ironmen. You look back over the last 4 seasons, he's missed 2 games, both of them in 2022, but missed no games last year, no games the year before that, missed 2 games in 2022, and then no games in 2021. Like, he's only missed a couple of games over the course of his entire NFL career, and he's been doing it for, 9 years now. So, like, Joe Thuney, we can absolutely expect to be there every game.
Ross, I dealt with this in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence got here and everybody says, give him the ball and get out of the way. I said, you have to insulate him because that's what before he can do all of that, you have to do all the other stuff. In year 2, it seems like Ben Johnson is getting Caleb Williams off to a good start. They're going to insulate him a little bit here with this offensive line, and I think it's a good move.
Yeah, and look, the NFL game is won in the trenches, right? We talk about this all the time. You build, everyone in the NFL except for Brian Schottenheimer believes that the NFL builds from the inside out. And that's the way that you do this. You have to protect your quarterback. You have to have a run game that takes pressure off your quarterback. You can't do either of those things if you don't have an offensive line that can hold up in front of you. And the consistent investments over the past few years of the offensive line in Chicago is absolutely what they should be doing. And it's no surprise. Look at the team that Ben Johnson found success with over in Detroit. Fantastic offensive line and a very impactful defensive line when healthy. You think about guys like Aiden Hutchinson, of course, but also Alim McNeil in the middle, right? Like, you had to have those kinds of players, or you didn't have to, but you did have those kinds of players that were there. Frank Ragnow, the center over in Detroit, who they lost this offseason, along with a couple of others. But these are the guys that Ben Johnson is used to working with and benefiting from over on the defensive side as the offensive guy. And so, yeah, build up those trenches, build up those lines, and that's going to help your young quarterback. That's going to help your run game. All of it is cyclical. This is the way to build a successful football team, and it's not surprising at all to see Ben Johnson go this route.
We're going down to the dirty now, right in your division where you cover the Saints and a team that you're extremely familiar with, good and bad, always a rival of the Saints. Let me ask you something. Mm-hmm. Who are the Falcons? Because they have 3 top 8 picks in the draft on offense. The tight end Kyle Pitts. Hey, you know what? It might be 4 if you add Drake London into the
Drake
top
London
10.
Was 8th. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Drake London was number 8.
In the last 5 years, they've drafted a quarterback, Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and they have also gotten Kyle Pitts, and they've reinvested into their offensive line a lot. But I still don't know who they are. Who are the Falcons to you from the outside looking in before we hear from my man Freeman down with Locked On Falcons?
Yeah, I think there's still a team that's exactly in this category of still looking for an identity. And the scary part for them is that they're having to wait to figure out if they can build that identity with a lot of young players. And that's fine. That's an okay way to go. You want to build through the draft, supplement through free agency, supplement with the veterans, but they don't have anybody right now that is the quintessential star to build things around or build their identity around. They've been weak in their pass rush for 2 decades. They're weak on the defensive side. They've got 2 quarterbacks, like everything that you need to get figured out as a team that's trying to compete, right? If you're in a rebuild, then the Falcons would be in a great place. But because they're a team that's actively trying to compete, they're in a little bit of a shaky foundation right now. But if their young players pan out, then all of a sudden they're winning the division. Like that's how quickly this can turn around for them. So they're right there teetering on building an identity and having an identity. And it's just about the timeline for them right now, I think.
No doubt about it. Now, if you look at all the teams around the league, the 7 or 8, 9 teams that we've even talked about, and you know how good they are. 2 things they have. They have good players, and they have someone in that organization, whether it be Howie Roseman in Philadelphia,
Sure.
Andy Reid. It doesn't have to be a coach, but it is someone who's a catalyst. And maybe the Falcons can find that in their new offensive coordinator. Here's Aaron Freeman.
And we've, watched the ups and downs of the Falcons play calling, and a lot of those ups and downs have coincided with the team's success because of that. And it's not because I think Zach Robinson is a bad play caller. I just think there are significant areas that he needs to improve upon. And the biggest one to me is the play action passing game. And basically, in doing this research, I learned that the Falcons don't really ask their tight ends to run routes on play action.
Well, that's a bad thing, especially when you pick one in the top 10 who's a route runner and not a blocker. But see, this is what I'm talking about, Ross. Alignment. We talked about it, and you and I, our teams, I'm not mentioning the Jaguars or the Saints today because I think we know what their identity is, and I ain't want to bore people with talking about my team all day. But this is the important thing about our offseason. The coach, GM, the front office, they all have alignment now. And now we're looking for Atlanta to probably do that same thing from Arthur Blank, Fontenot, and down to the coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have that, and you have to get it all figured out. And you need to also be putting players in position to do what it is that they do well. And so not running tight ends on play action to me is something that really runs twofold for this. One, you have a tight end, like you said, who's the route runner. He's not a blocker. So go ahead and put him in the better position of letting him run a route. And also, if you're going to go with your young quarterback, which the Falcons absolutely should, by the way, go with Michael Penix Jr. to begin this season, you have a young quarterback, your tight end should be his best friend. Right. And so he's somebody you should be able to rely on. So the advantage of the play action of being able to survey the field a little bit more, see things develop a little bit more as a young quarterback, and have an outlet that's working close to the line of scrimmage like a tight end would do, that should be an important part of what it is that the Falcons are doing for their offense. So I hope that Zach Robinson actually gets that fixed and kind of goes a different route here in 2025 in order to be able to maximize his young quarterback and put him in better positions.
When you go to barbershop, sometimes there's a dude in there that takes you around the mulberry bush. And what that is, he uses analogies a lot. And you have to sit there and look at him and wonder if he's ever going to tie it together. So here's one for you. There's an NFL team that plays a lot like an AAU basketball team that's full of good players, but somehow it just doesn't always look right and end up being a good result. I'll tell you who it is in just a second, and I'll also tell you that they play real close to Fort Worth, Texas. We'll talk about them in just a second on Locked On NFL. The Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys had to make this list of a team that needs an identity. I know they call themselves America's team, but America's team, to deserve that, you would have to have won something in the last 30 years. There's a lot of fans that have never seen the Cowboys win. And you know what? They've seen the Cowboys look good, but not win. And that's because they have a lot of really, really good players. The Cowboys offense, what do they need to do? We talked about the coach leaning in on their running game. Maybe Dallas will find a familiar number 2 to go along with Javonte Williams. Check out the boys from Locked On Cowboys.
Last one before we move on. The Tennessee Titans are rebuilding, right? And they have Tajay Spears, right, who they drafted, I think it was the 3rd round during the 2023 draft. Very talented player who I think they want to get more work. Would you be interested in a Tony Pollard reunion? Let's say if Tennessee starts out 1-5 or 1-6, and maybe you could flip a late round pick for Tony Pollard.
I don't know. I really felt like he just doesn't have a lot of power at this point, and I just don't know how much he's got left. That's and I worry about injuries too at this point with him. I think probably so, but I would be wary about being excited because of his name.
Yeah, see there, my man hit it dead on the head. That ship is sailed. Don't be going back to your old girlfriend, man. You got to remember what happened. You know what I'm saying? Don't you dare do that. That's the kind of advice we give. But I am not opposed to the Cowboys really, really leaning into their running game. It's just that they don't have to go get a blast from the past. They can recreate it by scouting and listening to the coaches instead of Jerry just sitting up being Jerry.
Yeah, again, I don't. This is another team that I don't consider a rebuilding team. I think teams that are rebuilding can value from bringing somebody back to their organization that can kind of remind you of the old times, and that can kind of be that player that serves as a, hey, here's how you make this work in this environment, in this city, in this community, with this fan base, in this stadium, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think all that is really valuable for rebuilding teams or teams that are trying to claw their way back into being a competitive mode. The Dallas Cowboys, to me, are not a rebuilding team, even though they hired a head coach like they are. They're not a rebuilding team. And so the idea of leaning on nostalgia in order to create production and create success, that's not the way that you need to go if you're the Dallas Cowboys. I loved Landon's apprehension there because I think it's spot on and exactly what's necessary. Yeah.
It is spot on. It is definitely spot on. It had to hurt Dallas to see their nemesis, Washington, improve. But what Washington improved, of course, they got Jaden Daniels, who, by the way, on the Locked On NFL Top 100 is way high. He's going to be ranked high, I think, on those rankings, and that's coming out here this Wednesday. So y'all make sure y'all check it out. We work really, really hard on that, and it's going to be the best Top 100 list you've ever seen. But focus on the players. What Washington did was change themselves from the inside. They didn't just put armor all on the tires. Somebody say, lift that engine up. Let me see what's under there. And what was happening is the back office, the atmosphere, the culture all changed because they got rid of the riffraff. The New York Giants are in a situation like that. They'll sit here and probably go, man, people are still talking about bringing back Odell maybe. And folks are saying, blaming them for Saquon still winning the championship and saying, finally, we got rid of Daniel Jones. But if the Giants don't fix their front office and their organization, nothing will never happen for them that's going to be good. But what I do believe is they're off to a really, really good start, because when you think about New York winning 4 championships, they won it with defense, Lawrence Taylor, Bill Belichick, and then Osi Umenyiora, Michael Strahan. They might be on their way to doing that, and Patricia Traina is here from Locked On Giants to tell you exactly how and who they're going to do it with.
Okay, let's talk about Abdul Carter now, the rookie. I am so excited to see what this young man can do. He's got a first step that is so lightning fast. It reminds me a lot of Osi Umenyiора's first step. All right, back in the day, Osi played at defensive end, but he had a knack for timing that first step off the ball. And before you know it, boom, he was in the backfield disrupting. This is what I think we're going to see a lot of with Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter's going to probably see a lot of chips from tight ends and running backs. They're going to try and slow him down because he's that fast. All right. So I'm really excited about that. Abdul Carter last year in college at Penn State, first year really playing a lot, at outside linebacker, finished 5th in the nation with 12 sacks, which was a career high. He had 52 pressures, a 92.4 pass rush grade, according to Pro Football Focus. I am so psyched to see what this kid could do.
Fortunately for the Giants, there were only 4 impact players in the draft, and the Giants picked 4th. The Jaguars jumped ahead of them and took Travis Hunter off the board. Abdul Carter fell to them because I know they would have leaned in on Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns and say, we can't take an edge rusher. But here they didn't have a choice. And I think because of that, they look a lot like, at least on paper, the defenses that won championships where they had multiple pass rushers.
Yeah, I think that they're in a much better situation with Abdul Carter, if I'm being fully honest, over on the defensive side. The offense has a lot to figure out. They've got 3 quarterbacks there right now. They got to figure out what's going to happen once they turn things over to Jackson Dart. That will be a process, and that's okay, right? Like, that's going to be a part of their process. But building a defensive identity for your young future quarterback, I think, is a really smart way to go. They bring in Shane Bowen, who comes over from the Tennessee Titans as their defensive coordinator. His defenses in Tennessee finished number 12 overall overall, number 23 overall, and number 18 overall, 2021 to 2023. And they ain't had no Abdul Carter. They ain't have no Brian Burns over there. They ain't have no Kayvon Thibodeau over there. And so I think that you get a pretty good mind that knows coverage, that really knows safety play very well. I mean, look what he did with Kevin Byard and these other guys and stuff like that. Like, knows that really, really well. And it now can help to elevate that secondary in New York, who also added Paulson Adebo as a corner, a guy I know very well that is an outstanding player at the catch point, will probably catch less flags in red, white, and blue than he did in black and gold. And I think that that will work out great for them. And then a pass rush to actually benefit and make that job for the defensive backs a little bit more impactful or be more impactful for their game as well. I think that they put together something really nice over on the defensive side of the football. Obviously still some weak points for that defense, second level play, all that other stuff, but there's time to kind of get that all figured out. And if they can build a defensive identity in a division that already has three strong teams, at least two strong teams, but Dallas is always going to find its way in there within the division competition and everything. You're going to set yourself up for the potential to be able to compete within that division, which I think is going to be, a top priority goal with Philly and Washington leading the way right now.
No doubt about that. And I know there's a Giant fan out there saying they let all these guys go and y'all talking about defense. And Ross just said that we need help in the secondary. They should have kept Xavier McKinney, who's running around up there in Green Bay as an all freaking pro. And I tell you, somewhere else you're going to find Xavier McKinney. The Locked On NFL Top 100 will be released Wednesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Locked On Sports Today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL host of Locked, and there are some stunners. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And I'm going to tell you right now, man, we're going to have reaction shows about that here and on our local shows. And I can tell you what, Xavier McKinney is definitely going to be on that list. I hate to spoil it for you, and I'm sorry, Giants fans. Matter of fact, Saquon Barkley is going to be on there too, Giants fans. So y'all going to have to. Hey, at least Daniel Jones won't be on there. Like,
you ain't got to worry about that. You ain't got to worry about that.
Will somebody who we let go not be on the list? Barely, but we'll talk to you about that. I think the offensive tackle Thomas from the Giants will probably be there. Yeah, so we ain't gonna be too hard on you guys. Make sure you get ready and get primed up too for all of the coverage. Training camp is coming. We are about to be so swamped and so busy, and we're gonna take it out on y'all by dropping content on y'all left and right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Everybody does such a good job. Tap into the daily show here twice with Tyler Rowland in the morning and me in the afternoon, and then make sure you check out your local so you stay on top from the local experts. Stay on top of your team and what's going on. We got our finger on the pulse of this whole thing. I'm gonna let Ross go and get out of here. Keep saying all this nice stuff about him and the network, but y'all had enough. Y'all get it. We'll see you tomorrow here on Locked On NFL. Take care.